Omagyanatmirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurnitanjena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Bhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. So we are celebrating this very special day of Govardhan Pūjā. It is a day of celebration, a very happy day. And actually, there are so many significant points, that can be made in relation to the significance of Govardhan. And of course, the first connection that most will have is that this is celebrating the day that Krishna lifted this Govardhan hill, right? This hill, which you can still see, although it's said to be smaller than it was. But this hill in Vrindavan that Krishna lifted in historical terms around 5,000 years ago, although it is actually an eternal cyclic Leela of the Lord. And it is, what is very sweet and very special about this pastime is that it is connected with this mood of protection that the Lord has for his devotees. And we see that, amongst the 6 limbs of Sharanagati, the 6 limbs of surrender, right? Acceptance of the favorable, rejection of the unfavorable, confidence in the Lord's protection. This Leela is associated with this limb of surrender, to have confidence in the Lord's protection. Then there's also the mood of mercy. Humility. Mood of humility, inviting mercy, doing Natmika. And then, now my brain isn't working. What are the other limbs of surrender? Doinya, Atma Nive, full self-surrender, surrender and humility, to have confidence in the Lord's protection, to embrace the Lord's guardianship. This is the main one, to embrace the Lord's guardianship, and to accept all that is favorable to surrender, to reject all that is unfavorable to surrender. These are the 6 limbs of Sharanagati. And this pastime is connected with that mood of having confidence that the Lord will protect us, just as he protected the residents of Vrindavan. And it's I highly recommend everyone to read the chapter in Loving Search for the Lost Servant, where Lord of the Cows, Srila Śrī Maharaj discusses this pastime in a very sweet and also giving profound insight. And because what is the essence of this pastime? That Krishna wants to demonstrate that his position is above all, right? And that if you are serving me, then you don't have to worry about so many other obligations. At least your heart, right? Your heart is wholly mine. Krishna doesn't want our body, actually. Krishna doesn't want our things, but he wants our heart, right? And so this is the essence of this pastime, right? That Krishna tells the residents of Vrindavan, why are you carrying out this sacrifice to Indra, right? This is a part of the whole Vedic system, which is centered around this mood of living in harmony with the environment, right? And so part of the Vedic system is you're honoring all the elements, you're honoring your ancestors, you're honoring the sages, and so on. And so as part of that, it's like there's this recognition of the order of things, the source of everything, and honoring everyone who's participating in making our lives what they are. Right. And so Indra, he is the king of heaven. He's also the god of rain. And so there's this tradition, right? The members of Vrindavan, they're cowherds, right? Their business is with milk and cows. And so cows eat grass. Grass comes from rain. And rain, according to the Vedic conception, is under the control, the management of Indra. This is Indra's job, so to speak. And so there's this practice to every year appease God Indra so that he'll continue supplying rain, and then their cows will be able to eat rich grass and so on. So this is the this is the annual practice that they have. And of course, it is a very nice way to live. But the thing is, and this is what Krishna wanted to show, that when you come to me, then you don't have to give honor separately to all these different delegated powers, right? And Indra, unfortunately, he forgot that, you know. And we see different occasions when different gods, it happens with Lord Brahma, the creator as well, that they forget their position. They forget that they are empowered by the Lord, by the source, right? And they get some arrogance about that. And our Guru Dev, Śrī Govardhan Pūjā, once he was telling this pastime, and very sweetly he said, actually, Krishna liked Indra, right? And so he wanted to teach him a lesson. He didn't want to see Indra going down the wrong path, right? With his puffed up idea about himself. I really appreciated our Gurudev saying that, because this is real affection, actually. Real love is not flattery, but real love may be expressed as merciful correction, right? And so this was also a part of Krishna's plan, right? To help Indra out, right? Help level Indra to come to some clear conception of who he is, right? So anyhow, we hear that Krishna, he's like a little boy, 9 years old or something, but he's so charming. And he convinces the residents of Vrindavan, oh, why do you need to do this sacrifice to Indra? And it's interesting because he actually preaches a kind of atheistic philosophy. It's called karma mimamsa. It's this conception that karma is everything, that karma is the controlling force. And whether there's a God or not, that's not very important. You know, everything's going on according to the law of karma, action and reaction. So Krishna actually, it's very funny. Krishna actually preached this atheistic conception. And he told them, let's just worship this Govardhan hill. Because actually everything we need comes from Govardhan hill. Who cares about this god Indra? This Govardhan hill is giving us sweet grasses and waters and flowers and so on. This Govardhan hill is taking care of our cows. So let us just worship, make offerings to this Govardhan hill. And all the cowherd men and women, Srila Sridhar Maharaj mentions, some willingly, some unwillingly, they were convinced, they went along with Krishna's idea. They know he's not an ordinary boy. You know, they don't know that he's God. That would spoil the fun, right? But they know he's not an ordinary boy. There's been lots of superhuman feats that he's performed by now. So they go along with him. And then what happens, of course, Indra becomes very upset. But before that, we can mention there was this very grand, beautiful offering made to Govardhan Hill. And at that time, we hear Krishna took on the form of Govardhan. And there are some descriptions of person seeing these two arms coming out and Krishna eating all these offerings very happily and sometimes calling out for more and more. He had an insatiable appetite, and more and more preparations were brought from surrounding villages to satisfy him. And so this went on very happily, but then Indra became very angry. He sends his thunder clouds and lightning and hail and so on, and he begins devastating Vrindavan. Who are these? Who do they think they are? And who is this foolish boy? Who does he think he is? And why are they listening to him? I'll teach them a lesson and so on. Welcome, Axel, bright and early in California. Well done. And so Indra made his attack, and the residents of Vrindavan, what do? They go running to Krishna. Krishna got us in trouble. Krishna will get us out of trouble. And so they go running to Krishna. Oh, we followed your advice, and now look what has happened. Indra, he is attacking us. And so then we hear Krishna very affectionately. He went and he said, don't worry, I will take care of you. And he lifted with the little pinky of his left hand just to demonstrate, right, his power and how insignificant this was for him. lifted up this Govardhan hill for these 7 days and 7 nights that the storm was going on, and protected all of his beloved family members and friends. And I want to read this one verse. Let me see. I did just publish it. It's a very beautiful verse that summarizes this whole pastime. Find it. So this is in Srimad Bhagavatam. This is the verse. Deve varshiti yagya viplavadusha vajashma varshani lai sidat pala pasu striyatma sharanam drishdvanu kampyutsmayam utpadyaika karena shailam abalo lilo chilinjam yata vibrat goshtamapan mahindra maravitriyan no Indra gavam. Indra became angry when his sacrifice was disrupted, and thus he caused rain and hail to fall on Gokul, accompanied by lightning and powerful winds, all of which brought great suffering to the cowherds, animals, and women there. When Lord Krishna, who is by nature always compassionate, saw the condition of those who had only him as their shelter, he smiled broadly and lifted Govardhan hill with one hand, just as a small child picks up a mushroom to play with it. Holding up the hill, he protected the cowherd community. May he, Govinda, the lord of the cows and the destroyer of Indra's false pride, be pleased with us. Very beautiful verse, and Srila Sridhar Maharaj, he quotes this in that chapter in Loving Search when he's telling this pastime. And a few things I just wanted to highlight. This one line is very, very nice. Drishdvanu kampa. Drishtva is referring to a glance. Anukampa means mercy, grace. So Drishdvanu kampa, this glance of mercy, right? This is what we all hope for, right? To have that upon us. So Atma, so all of these cows, cowherd men, cowherd ladies, Atma Sharanam, they've given their whole selves to Krishna. He is everything, and he's giving his glance of mercy upon them and going to protect them. And then this is very nice. I love this part. It's like a kind of play on words, because the word Indra, it is actually like a title, and it means Lord, something like Lord, right? So the king of heaven, he's known as Indra. He has another name, no doubt, but that's like his title, and he's referred to generally as Indra. But Indra also just means like Lord. So there's this play on words here, where Krishna, he's referred to as Indro Gavam. Gavam means cows. So Krishna is referred to as the Indra of cows. And it's just wonderful, because there's this great, powerful, almighty Indra of heaven, right? Lord of heaven, who apparently has the supreme position. And then there's this very unassuming, simple Lord of cows, right? And at first glance, that great Indra of heaven, he is the powerful one. He is the superior one. But in this pastime is being demonstrated, right? Beauty over power. Beauty is a higher power. Right? Indra's coming with this great aggressiveness, force, right? Power in the conventional sense. And Krishna's coming in this very unassuming way, this mood of sweetness and love, charm, beauty. And so in that is trumping the apparent power of Indra. So there's so many layers to this pastime. This is one very interesting layer, by demonstrating that beauty and sweetness and charm, they are the greatest powers in existence. They are more powerful than anything that we may think of more conventionally as powerful, power, knowledge, force, majesty, and so on. And it's like this whole Leela, I like to think of it as an emblem of the Aprakrita Leela, right? Aprakrita is referring to this posing of the Lord as human-like, right? And apparently ordinary. This is what many people struggle to grapple. People struggle to get their heads around this. How is this little blue boy your supreme God. It doesn't make sense according to conventional logic. But this is the point, right? Krishna is showing this is something higher, this position of being hidden power, right? Where beauty and charm are eclipsing conventional conceptions of power. This is something higher, right? Because this allows for a greater flow of sweetness. This allows for a greater flow of love, right? So I think of this whole pastime as like an emblem of this human-like play of the Lord, right? Where he's posing in this very ordinary way, and yet is actually holding the highest position. So this is a very wonderful verse. Welcome to Vishari Didi, honored to have you with us. And yeah, and so we hear, right, that Krishna came to the rescue of his beloved friends, and there are so many charming details that are also told about this pastime, that Krishna, he's, you know, and you'll see in paintings, right, they're depicting this event, and you'll see that all the cowherd men, they're holding up their like herding rods, their sticks, you know, because this is a part of this is one of the characteristics, right, of the Aprakrita Leela, this human-like play of the Lord. The pervading mood is Jnana Shunya Bhakti. Jnana Shunya Bhakti means knowledge-free devotion, means their love for the Lord is not restricted by an awareness of his divinity, right? And so it's a very funny thing that they're seeing Krishna performing this superhuman feat of lifting the Govardhan hill with the pinky of his left hand. And yet they're also, because of this mood of Jnana Shunya Bhakti, knowledge-free devotion, they're also thinking, oh, you know, he needs our help. And so we hear how they're all the men are like holding up their sticks. Oh, we're going to help him out. He won't be able to do it alone. And we hear that the ladies, you know, sometimes they're coming and massaging his muscles. Oh, you're going to be all right, Krishna. And sometimes they're feeding him some butter in the mouth to keep him strong, and so on, you know. So all these charming moments are going on throughout this Leela. And then finally we hear, after these 7 days and 7 nights, and Indra understood, okay, this is not an ordinary boy. And he stopped his devastation of Vrindavan, begged for forgiveness, and he performed special worship of Krishna at that time, partly with Indra has this special Sarabi cow, very famous in the Vedic culture, who can fulfill all wishes, and Indra bathed Krishna with the milk from his precious Sarabi cow. And there was a kunda, a body of water, a lake that sprang out of that, Govinda Kund, and it is still present today in Vrindavan. So this is the pastime and gist. And so in that chapter, in Loving Search for the Lost Servant, which I mentioned, Srila Sridhar Maharaj, she makes this very nice, very really beautiful point at the end of the chapter, where he's saying that as a result, because what is it that happens in this pastime, right? The residents of Vrindavan, they're going along with their ordinary worldly affairs, their conventional duties. Then Krishna asks them, for his sake, to leave that aside and come directly to him. What happens as a result? They get in trouble. They get trouble. And so this is also, we can also take this as a representation, right, of the fact that when anyone takes a step away from their conventional life to move towards that central consciousness of Krishna consciousness, they're going to face some trouble. They're going to face some trouble in their lives, right? They're leaving aside their constitutional duty, taking the revolutionary path. There's going to be some trouble. as a result. They're going to the center. There's going to be some trouble because of that. And so what is Krishna saying in this pastime? Just keep your attention to me, right? Keep your attention to me. Call out for my shelter, and I will take care of you, right? And in Srila Sridhar Maharaj's explanation, he broadens this idea, and he also says, right, that this can also indicate that it won't only be trouble from outside, but trouble from inside, right? He says many mundane impulses may arise within ourselves, right? Most likely there will be a purification, a purging process that goes on, right? So all kinds of things are going to come out of us that we didn't know were there even, right? So all kinds of trouble. It can be trouble from the environment, right? When we're moving away from what society's norms are, what our acquaintances, friends, family are expecting of us, right? Putting less importance on our previous duties, putting new emphasis on our spiritual connection. That's going to invite trouble from the environment. But then also there's all this internal movement and purification that's taking place. That's also going to be very troublesome, right? So all kinds of things are going to go on. So what's Krishna is telling us in this pastime? Give your attention to me, right? Take shelter under Govardhan Hill. Take shelter under Govardhan Hill. I want to read. I just love this this expression of Srila Sridhar Maharaj here. Different material tendencies and mental impulses may attack us. Even Indra himself, the king of heaven, may attack us. But if we are attentive towards our goal, if we are careful to read the order of Krishna, he will protect us in the shade of his lotus feet. He will give us shelter under the shade of Govardhan Hill, where no Indra will be able to touch our heads. And with full faith that Krishna will give us protection, we should try to take shelter under Govardhan Hill and pray, "Oh Krishna, give me protection from all the difficulties that may come to attack me because of my leaving behind my ordinary obligations. Although many anomalies may try to catch us, Krishna will protect us. And in his representation as Govardhan Hill, that wonderful master of the cows will save us from all sorts of difficulties." How is this possible? God works wonders. His ways are unknown and inconceivable. Haribol. So beautiful, so reassuring. When we try to put a stop to our material form of life and take our course towards Godhead, Krishna consciousness, neglecting the imperative duties that are upon us, so many difficulties may come to trouble us, to trap us in our journey towards the ultimate truth. But if we stick to the order of Krishna, he will protect us. So beautiful, so reassuring, right? So reassuring. So this is one layer to this pastime, right? This is the first connection that we'll all make, remembering this very sweet Leela, right? But then there are so many other deeper points that are to be considered in connection with Govardhan. And I would say the first point in this regard is that Govardhan has been particularly identified, selected by our gurus as being the place of our aspiration, right? And so how is that so? There's very systematic logic behind this. And for this, we can refer to Upadeshamrita, right? Upadeshamrita is this scripture, and it was published by Srila Swami Maharaj Prabhupada in English as the Nectar of Instruction, it's an amazing work. It's only 11 verses, but it covers everything from the lowest point to the highest point in a very systematic way. And so in this Upadeshamrita, in one of the verses, I believe it's verse number 9, Rupa Goswami, he does this, he describes the gradation within the spiritual sky, right? This Vaikuntaj Janito Vadamadupuri Tatrapira Sotsavat Vrindaranya Mudara Pani Ramana, and so on. Tatrapi Govardhana. So in this verse, Rupa Goswami is making a description of the different levels within the spiritual sky according to the criteria. What is the criterion in making and assessing the gradation here? Rasa, right? Rasa, what is the degree of love and intimacy that is available with the Lord, right? And so he starts off saying, what is higher than so Vaikuntha is like at the entrance of the spiritual sky. Vaikuntha is the abode of Vishnu. So he starts out saying higher than Vaikuntha is Mathura. Mathura is the place of Krishna's birth, right? So what is the point of that? Because there in Mathura, there's the Janma Leela, the birth Leela of Krishna. And because there's a birth Leela, it means there's some more development in the rasa. In other words, there's more availability, there's more development in terms of love and intimacy in connection with the Lord. There's a greater spectrum of relationships. That's what I want to say. There's the relationship of, the parental relationship is there, right? The lover relationship is also more developed, and so on. So it's saying here, Mathura is higher than Vaikuntha because there the rasa is more developed and there's the birth pastime of Krishna. Then it's saying, higher than Vaikuntha is Mathura, then higher than Mathura is Vrindavan, because there the rasa dance took place, this amorous dance, loving dance that Krishna had with his cowherd girlfriends. And then higher than Vrindavan is Govardhan, because more intimate, exclusive meetings took place between Krishna and his beloveds. Then what is the highest place in the spiritual sky? That is Radha Kund, right? Radha Kund is a particular lake in Vrindavan, which is said to be an extended form of Shrimati Radharani. And so this Radha Kund is mentioned twice in Upadeshamrita as being the highest place, right, of attainment. And so then one may ask, well, hang on, I thought we were just told that our gurus said the place of aspiration is Govardhan. Yes, correct. But if Radha Kund is the highest place, shouldn't we want to go there? No. So this is their thinking, and this is something that was discussed by Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, our Param Guru, Srila Sridhar Maharaj, our Gurudev, and our whole lineage of gurus. And we see also in Raghunath Das Goswami, of the 6 Goswamis, he had particular hankering for service in Govardhan. So what is the thinking behind this? That we don't want to go to the highest place. We'll take one step below. This is the thinking. Radha Kund is the highest place. And so Saraswati Thakur expressed this, my gurus, they will stay in Radha Kund and they have their intimate direct service to Radha and Krishna. But I will take a more humble position, one step below in Govardhan. And so the vision that was described by our gurus is that we will stay in Govardhan, and from Govardhan, we will go to do service to help our gurus in their seva at Radha Kund. And at the end of our day of service, we will return to our safe place, safe position in Govardhan. Right? This is the thinking. Right? And Govardhan also has this very unique nature in that although it has such a high place in the spiritual sky, it also is known for being of a very generous nature. Krishna, in the Govardhan conception, is very, very generous, very broad, right? And we see, and this is something that is seen clearly if we consider how the Govardhan Shila is worshipped, right? The Shila means stone, and and this is Srila Sridhar Maharaj also discusses this point very beautifully in that chapter that I mentioned. He says, you know, a part of the infinite is also infinite. 0 plus 0 is 0, 0 minus 0 is 0. Something like that. So a part of the infinite is also infinite. So if you take a stone from Govardhan Hill, that is considered non-different from the original hill. And Krishna is not limited to only appearing in his form as Krishna. He can also extend himself into form of mountain, to a form of stone, if he so wishes. Right? And so we worship, and this is actually, you could say, what's the word I want to use? Amongst the Gaudiya Vaishnavas, like the Vaishnavas in the line of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the worship of Govardhan Shila, we can say, is primary. Right? It is very much representing the mood of Gaudiya Vaishnavism, the focal point of Gaudiya Vaishnavism, right? There are different strands of Vaishnavism, right? And we can make a comparison with Śrī Vaishnavas, right? In the line of Ramanuja, great, powerful, famous Vaishnava Acharya. And so they worship Shalagram Shila, right? Shalagram Shilas are these stones that come from a particular lake in the Himalayas. And those Shilas, those stones represent Lord Vishnu, Narayan. And so we can make a comparison between these two types of worship and see how radically different they are. Because the worship of Shalagram Shila, it is the most difficult worship that there is, probably. You know, I would say from my knowledge, from my experience, it's the worship of the Shalagram Shila, because it's Vishnu worship. It's a very high standard, very high standard. You have to keep very strict timing with offerings, worship, and so on. Very strict, you know, so many very specific mantras that must be chanted, and at a very high standard. But on the other hand, the worship of the Govardhan Shila, which is very dear to the Gaudiya Vaishnava, is completely the opposite. It is the most free, the most magnanimous worship that there is, right? There's no restriction on, what you offer, when you offer. And it's described in our scripture, Chaitanya Charitamrita. Mahaprabhu personally gave Govardhan Shila to Raghunath Das Goswami, and he told him, just offer some Ganga Jal, some Ganges water, and Tulasi Patra, Tulasi leaves. That's enough, right? Very, very simple, right? And the mood of Krishna in his form as Govardhan is very free, right? Our Gurudev, I can mention our Gurudev said about the worship of Shalagram Shila, this Vishnu deity. Our Gurudev said, I don't feel qualified to worship that deity. That was his expression. But when it comes to Govardhan Shila, our Gurudev, there was one time he told one devotee, you can offer some biscuits and chocolate, no problem. Anything you cook in your home, you can offer, right? He also told some devotees that you don't even have to take second initiation. Normally, when puja is offered to the deity, worship is offered, it has to be performed by someone who's received Gayatri, Brahminical initiation. But our Gurudev mentioned even in the temple, when worshiping Govardhan Shila, it's not required. So this is a very curious and wonderful characteristic of the worship of Govardhan. Very generous mood, very sweet mood, very loving, magnanimous mood, right? So, and it's this particular combination of very, very elevated, very, very high, but at the same time, generous. This very unique mood of Govardhan. Another interesting point about Govardhan is that actually Govardhan has two aspects. And in this way, Srila Sridhar Maharaj actually made a comparison with Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, right? Because in the same way, Mahaprabhu is simultaneously Radha and Krishna, right? Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is Krishna with the heart, the mood of Radharani. In other words, there's the aspect of Krishna as well as the devotee of Krishna and within Mahaprabhu. And it is a similar thing with Govardhan in the sense that there's an aspect of Govardhan which is a devotee of Krishna, right? And there are verses in the scriptures which celebrate him in this way. There's one beautiful verse spoken by the Braja Gopis, the cowherd ladies of Vrindavan. They're glorifying Govardhan Hill, saying, oh, they use this phrase, Haridasa Varyo, you are the best of all devotees of Hari, all devotees of the Lord, you are the best. And they describe, how Govardhan is an amazing devotee. Govardhan's giving so much for the service of Krishna, right? His soft grasses, offering sweet waters, hidden caves, and so forth, trees that are giving shade. There's even a description of Govardhan as being in a state of ecstasy, right? And the grass is like his hair is standing on end and so on. So there's this one aspect of Govardhan as a devotee of Krishna, right? A conscious servitor of Krishna. But then there's this other aspect of Govardhan as Krishna himself, right? Non-different from Krishna himself. And our Gurudev mentioned in this regard that in our own approach towards Govardhan, we emphasize this aspect, and we worship Govardhan. Very nice to see you, Soumya Sham, Vijay. And I see Ash also joined us. Welcome, everyone. So our Gurudev mentioned that, right? As Mahaprabhu told Raghunath Das Goswami, worship this Govardhan Shila. It's non-different from Krishna himself, right? And so our Gurudev said, we take that as our, example. And so we worship in our temples, we worship Govardhan in this way, right? As an extension of Krishna himself. And so as I was saying, right, our gurus, they express this aspiration, right? The Govardhan has this very unique position, right? One step below Radha Kund, the highest place, right? And then also this very sweet, loving, magnanimous mood. So for many different reasons, our gurus have selected Govardhan as the place of our high ideal and where we aspire for residence. And we've heard some wonderful stories in this regard. We hear actually that Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, our great grandfather guru, that in his last days, he was based in Kolkata at that time, in Bengal. He was also in Puri for some time before that also, in the months leading up to his departure from the world. But we hear in his last few months, he began expressing this desire to reside in Govardhan. And he even gave some instruction. There was this one close disciple of his, Balaram Panda, and he requested him to construct some type of cottage for him. And so he had this in mind that he would go and spend his last days in Govardhan. But finally that did not happen. And Srila Saraswati Thakur, he left in Kolkata, right? And his divine form was brought to Mayapur, of course. But we hear that this very interesting point that on that night, he left early in the morning, like 4:30 in the morning. So before the sun rose, during the Brahma Muhurta, before the sunrise. It was the 31st of, no, it was the 1st of January, 1937, according to Western calculation, after midnight. But we hear that that night, or that early morning, however you want to put it, Balaram Panda, this disciple of his in Govardhan, he had a dream, a very vivid dream. It was like a vision where Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati appeared to him. And we hear in this very extraordinary appearance, like mad, like hardly wearing any clothes and looking like crazed in this mood of divine love. And he said to him in Bengali, he said, Balaram, I have come. Balaram, I have come. And Balaram, Balaram Panda, he awoke from that. And the dream was so vivid. He felt this wasn't just a dream, right? And so he rushed to send a telegram, right? So that was like the quickest form of communication at time. So he rushed to send a telegram to Calcutta, to the devotees in Calcutta, to ask, like, how is Prabhupada? How is our Guru Maharaj? And they replied to him saying, oh, he just left, right? He just left the world. And so for that reason, it's considered that, when Saraswati Thakur left the world, he went to Govardhan. He took his residence in Govardhan, right? From one perspective and one aspect. That was where his heart was. And then another very wonderful point is our Gurudev. So in our temple, we have our temple in Govardhan. And we can also mention that our temple in Govardhan, that was particularly desired by Srila Sridhar Maharaj, right? When there was some discussion of building something within the whole Vrindavan area, Srila Sridhar Maharaj, he instructed our Gurudev, you can build something there, but build it in Govardhan. Vrindavan is not exactly our place, right? But he specifically told him, build it in Govardhan. That was Srila Sridhar Maharaj's specific desire. And Srila Sridhar Maharaj didn't want to build, he didn't want so many temples. We discussed this in our last meeting, right, for Srila Sridhar Maharaj's appearance day. Srila Sridhar Maharaj did not want so many temples, right? But to have one in Govardhan, that was particularly his desire. And so that was something that our Gurudev held closely to his heart. And so our Gurudev first built something, purchased land in Govardhan. And then later, he built something in Vrindavan also. That was for a few different reasons. Partly because he saw the need, the Western devotees, they're coming, they like to go to Vrindavan, they need somewhere to stay, right? There were other considerations as well. But the point is, Govardhan was particularly where it was Srila Sridhar Maharaj's desire, particularly to have a temple there, right? And so our Gurudev, he purchased that land there, and as always, our Gurudev, and I'm sure all of you have heard this by now, but whenever he was developing a temple, he would first build a residence for the devotees and for the pilgrims. That was always his thinking, which isn't in line with the conventional way of doing things, right? Not that first for the Lord, not first for God, but first for the devotees of God. That was how our Gurudev would do things. And so he built this guest house. I'm not sure if it was the original guest house or if there was something smaller before. But the main big guest house that's there now it has a very particular name that our Gurudev gave to it. It is Śrī Dayita Das Seva Kunja, right? So Dayita Das, it is an internal name for Srila Saraswati Thakur. Right? Dayita Das, it means servant of the beloved, right? And indicating his deep devotion for Radharani, for Srimati Radharani. And sometimes he would sign his name like that in certain places, Dayita Das. Srila Sridhar Maharaj also has one composition glorifying him, referring to him like that, as Śrī Dayita Das. So Dayita Das, oh, move that candle, dear. We have an altar here with the little fire hazard here with the candle on the altar. Maybe can you move the candle? So this was our Gurudev's wonderful vision, right? Dayita Das Seva Kunja. So this term, Seva Kunja, you'll see it is used sometimes in Vaishnava writings. Kunja is referring to like a grove, a forest grove, and Seva service. So Seva Kunja, and Kunja, it also has a connotation with Krishna's various pastimes in the forests of Vrindavan, and also on a different layer, the residence of so many different great devotees, right? The Goswamis and so on, living in different kunjas. And so then Seva Kunja, like a grove of service. It is this like poetic expression, right? Place of service, place of divine service. So this was our Gurudev's wonderful vision. Śrī Dayita Das Seva Kunja. This was his wonderful offering, also you can say, that he's offering this as a place for his Param Guru, Srila Saraswati Thakur, to render his seva in Govardhan, right? Because actually, as I mentioned, Saraswati Thakur expressed that desire for a place to stay in Govardhan, but he left the world before that was done, right? So that was never prepared for him. And so this was our Gurudev's beautiful vision. He was offering that. He was offering that place for the service of Saraswati Thakur within Govardhan. And it is such a perfect name. And we hear that our Gurudev, when they were in the middle of the construction for that building, our Gurudev actually mentioned to some of the devotees, he said, I've thought of the perfect name. And he said, but I'm not going to announce it right now. He said, I'm going to wait. And he said, because if I tell it now, then other people will copy it. And that happens in other cases that are like, for example, one of the emblems on the domes in Navadvip, after our Gurudev put them up, then many other temples, they copied it. So the chakra, yeah. So Gurudev said, I have the perfect name in mind, but I'm not going to tell it now. I will announce it in the very last moment. Gurudev, he actually said, he said himself, all of the names that I give are perfect. And he said, why? Because they're coming by Guru Maharaj's inspiration. If Guru Maharaj's inspiration is there, then it must be perfect. Gurudev mentioned this. Really, it is so profound, like, to consider some of these different names that our Gurudev, they very specific. Every single one of our temples in India, they all have a unique and very specific name. And for example, in Vrindavan, Gurudev gave two names to our temple in Vrindavan. There's the public name, I think it's Srila Sridhar Swami Seva Ashram, something like that. But then, or maybe that's the Govardhan. Sri Krishna Saraswati Mat and Mission, I think that's the Vrindavan one. But then our Gurudev also gave an internal name, Shri Rupa Saraswati Sridhar Seva Kunja. Right? So, because as I mentioned before, when our Gurudev began conceiving of having a temple in Vrindavan, well, actually, originally, that's a whole story, actually, because originally he was going to build something on the outskirts primarily because this was going to be a place for the Western devotees to stay, to go on pilgrimage, to do the shopping they need to do, and so on, to have a safe place to stay. And our Gurudev, he never liked to impose, right? And our Gurudev always had this very humble mood, not wanting to, he liked to avoid going into the most sacred areas. And this in Puri, also in Jagannath Puri, he had the same approach. He didn't like to build anything or buy land in like the prime real estate yet, let's say, or what was considered to be the highest area. But humbly, to take a step back somewhere more in the outskirts, that was his vision. But then we know, right, there was a whole story. He actually purchased a piece of land on the outskirts. He started building something, and then there was a huge storm that destroyed everything that he built. And then from that, he understood, oh, there's some other will, right? There's some higher will that has another plan. And so our Gurudev waited, and he waited, it was at least a year, maybe 2 years. And then the current piece of land that our temple holds now, that came in a very miraculous way. I think most of you have heard that story, right? The dead telephone that called him, the telephone line had been dead for a week. And then our Gurudev's checking every now and again, is the line back? This is in 992 or something, right? There's just like one telephone line in the temple, and that's not always working, right? But anyway, it had been out for a week, and our Gurudev's checking every now and again. All of a sudden, one afternoon, he picks it up to check if the line's running, and there's a voice on the other side of the phone. Oh, Maharaj, we have this piece of land for you. I'm holding it just for you. I don't want to sell it. And the sellers, they don't want to sell it to anyone else. They're not interested in the money, but they want it to go to the right person. And don't worry if you don't have the money, I'll put the money up. This was a friend of our Gurudev's in Vrindavan. I forget his name right now. Anyhow, this came in that land, and that land is in the heart of Vrindavan, in the most sacred place. Rasa Stali, right? Where the amorous dance, love dance of Krishna with his girlfriends in Vrindavan takes place. So anyhow, this land came about in this miraculous way. But one of the point I'm coming to here is that our Gurudev, he came to this realization that actually Guru Maharaj needs a place for his service in Vrindavan, right? Originally, our Gurudev was thinking, oh, I'll get a place so that the visiting pilgrims can have somewhere to stay. But then he realized, oh, Guru Maharaj, he is of such a high stature, right? He has a place in Vrindavan. He needs a place for his seva in Vrindavan. And so then he, with this new vision, he accepted, right? And he constructed something there. And for that reason, you'll see in our Vrindavan temple, our Gurudev had a deity of Śrīla Sridhar Maharaj installed there, which he hasn't done in any of the other temples that he opened in India. Apart from, of course, in Navadvip, where Śrīla Sridhar Maharaj's samadhi is, and his divine form is actually placed in samadhi in the earth. That's different. But otherwise, our Gurudev hasn't done that anywhere. So just there in Vrindavan, our Gurudev had its deity of Śrīla Sridhar Maharaj installed, specifically with that vision that Śrīla Sridhar Maharaj needs a place for his service in Vrindavan. And so, tying this all up, for this reason, our Gurudev, he gave that name. This is, as I said, the internal name, Gurudev described it. Shri Rupa Saraswati Sridhar Seva Kunja. So this was his vision, right? That this is our line, right? Beginning from Rupa Goswami, right? Rupa Nugadara, the divine current of divine love that is flowing from Rupa Goswami, coming from Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, flowing through the heart of Srila Rupa Goswami, right? Rupa Saraswati, referring to Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, who's our modern leader of Krishna consciousness in the modern age, who established, who, you know, brought about a renaissance of Gaudiya Vaishnavism in the modern age, who's the great-grandfather of all the Gaudiya Vaishnavas of different groups, various groups in this age. So from Rupa to Saraswati, then to Sridhar, you know, Srila Bhakti Rakshak Sridhar Dev Goswami Maharaj, the preeminent disciple of Srila Saraswati Thakur, who is giving the most profound explanations of Gaudiya Vaishnavism. So that, you know, who Saraswati Thakur indicated, right, in his last moments, I'm handing the current to him, right? So this is the line, Rupa Saraswati Sridhar Seva Kunja, place for their service, right? A place for their service. And so this was our Gurudev's vision, right? So all of this is to say, right, how perfect, all of the names that our Gurudev gave, how perfect they all are. How perfect they all are. Actually, you know, it's something of a sad point, but it's almost like there's a chapter of our Gurudev's Leela in this world that is missing. Because actually our Gurudev, you know, he mentioned we heard about different works that he wanted to complete. Our Gurudev was very skilled in Sanskrit and Bengali poetry, writing, and he actually, you know, since we're speaking about Govardhan, right? And we can also say our Gurudev also expressed that aspiration. He wanted to spend his last days in Govardhan, and in fact, as I understand, he actually requested Acharya Maharaj to bring his body to Govardhan after he left. And that was not possible due to practical reasons. But for that reason, Acharya Maharaj did install the deity of our Gurudev, Srila Govinda Maharaj, in Govardhan. And there's this beautiful Pushpa Samadhi, it is called, means like a representation of the original one. And so that's a very beautiful temple of our Gurudev in Govardhan. So our Gurudev, he talked about that, and he also expressed on different occasions, he had this desire to spend his last days there. He spoke about like living there quietly in his last days, the few of his friends around him, and working. He specifically wanted to work on different compositions in Sanskrit and Bengali, some of which Srila Sridhar Maharaj had specifically asked him, right? There was one work in particular, very special work, distilling the essential verses of Srimad Bhagavatam. There was one project like that Srila Sridhar Maharaj started but could not complete. And he requested our Gurudev to complete that work. So that was one project. And our Gurudev had another project of his own, I've heard of, writing Bengali poetic explanations of Rupa Goswami's writings. So our Gurudev, he had so much wealth in him, actually, which unfortunately, for whatever reason, the world was not blessed by having the darshan of. Right? There was one occasion our Gurudev was sitting with a few devotees, and he was saying, oh, this is my desire to stay in Govardhan. Relish shlokas, he said, and he's saying, oh, but now I've become a businessman. I've become a businessman, managing this mission. So he was so caught up in the management of the mission that he wasn't able to fulfill that. And it's an interesting point, because we do see in the cases of other great acharyas, in recent times, and modern acharyas, that they had some closing leela, right? We hear Srila Sridhar Maharaj, he had like a final chapter in his pastimes in this world. Even Srila Swami Maharaj Prabhupada, even though he, established this worldwide grand mission, there's still some period, right? He wanted to leave in Vrindavan, and you know, he had some final period. Srila Saraswati Thakur also. But in a sense, our Gurudev, he discussed that, you know, wanting to have this different phase in his life in this world, but didn't come about, you know. But perhaps that was the Leela, right? Some vipralamba, some separation from what might have been. It didn't manifest, you know, for whatever reason. We're very fortunate because we could have, and even for those of you who didn't meet Śrīla Govinda Maharaj in person, you know, you're just coming at the cusp, right? The wave is still going, right? And just like I haven't met Śrīla Sridhar Maharaj in person or Śrīla Swami Maharaj Prabhupada in person, but they're just a couple of years behind, right? Not, the wave is still flowing. We feel their presence very strongly. And so we're all a part of this wave, right? This modern wave of Krishna consciousness that was inaugurated by Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. We're all being carried in that wave at this time. And so we're feeling that. We're feeling the aroma. We're feeling the fragrance and the freshness of that wave of, and what is that wave? It is their vital realizations, right? Their fresh, living, vital realization in Krishna consciousness. We're all a part of that wave. And so this is our great fortune, right? That Vaishnavas of such great caliber, Śrīla Govinda Maharaj, Śrīla Sridhar Maharaj, Śrīla Swami Maharaj Prabhupada, Śrīla Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. We're all feeling that, you know, the breeze of that wave of Krishna consciousness, which has inundated the world by their grace, you know, and by hearing about, you know, their divine sentiments, right? Hearing about their mood of devotion, their realization, their activity. We're all getting deep inspiration from that, and seeing and feeling the vitality of this, right? This isn't something in the history books. This isn't even something 500 years ago. But here and now, that current is flowing and live. We just have to go to the stream and take the drink. Actually, we've already been brought to the stream. Just have to drink the water. That's all we have to do, right? The choice is ours, right? So we're so fortunate, right? We can hear about, you know, Govardhan is not just a place in India, right? And not just a hill that we hear about. But, you know, we've heard of such great Vaishnavas like Śrīla Govinda Maharaj. What was their realization in connection with Govardhan? What was their aspiration in connection with Govardhan? You know? And, you know, another interesting thing on point in line with this is in our temple in Govardhan, you'll see there's this rather big stone, Shila from Govardhan Hill, that's been installed there. And it's a little funny actually, because our Gurudev never had the intention of installing a deity there. Originally, his idea was just to have a guest house, a shelter for visiting pilgrims. That was his idea. And what happened is when they were preparing the land in some part of the property, the devotees discovered this big Shila in the ground. And our Gurudev could identify this as Govardhan Shila. There were also some markings indicating that Shila had been worshipped previously. So he actually came by his own will there. And I came across this one private recording of our Gurudev, very funny, where he's saying, I don't know if I should say it on being recorded, but I personally love this about Śrīla Govinda Maharaj. But he says, he's just speaking to like 2 or 3 devotees in the room. And he was saying, you know, I never had any intention to worship the deity there. And then he said, I am not an Archan man, right? Archan is referring to the the worship, particular, specific worship that's offered to the deity, right? And our Gurudev said, I am not an Archan man. And then he said, and no one can make me an Archan man. and then he took it further, and he said, I will eat first, and then I will give to the deity. He said, this is my style. Right? I just love that. Our Gurudev, he's like pure Vrindavan mood bhakta. Like, that's pure Vrindavan, Jnana Shunya Bhakti. Like, none of this formality. Like, forget about all that. You know? But I shouldn't say that because we don't want to discourage, you know, we don't want to discourage ourselves, because it's good for us to do some archan, right? But that was our Gurudev. Like, he had this very, very pure Vrindavan mood, as I said. So, but he said, but then this Govardhan Shila just appeared on the land by his own will. So then what am I going to do? Right? Then we must worship him. Another occasion I'm reminded of now, in Navadvip. I'll wrap things up soon. We're just over an hour. I'm sure you all have things to do. But in Navadvip, right? This temple, ancient deity of Nrsingadev is there, right? Like not far, maybe 30 minutes away from our temple in Navadvip. And at that time, there was one period when the proprietors of that temple with this ancient deity in Nrsingadev, they wanted to give the temple into the care of our Gurudev. And our Gurudev, he said, actually, we're worshippers of Radha Krishna Mahaprabhu. We're not so focused on the worship of Nrsingadev. He said, we're not going so much to Nrsingadev. He said, however, if Nrsingadev wants to come to us, he said, if he wants our service, then we will cooperate. We'll give our service to him. Our Gurudev, he has such a natural mood in Krishna consciousness, very sweet and natural mood. So I don't know, I feel like I've left out a lot, but just kind of followed the flow that came in regards to Govardhan. Let me think. If anyone else wants to share anything, then I would love to hear that. And welcome. We had a few others join, Krishna and Johnny, Suvalita. Oh, there were many other things. Oh, this is the final thing I'd like to say. We mentioned Raghunath Das Goswami, right? And that and also there are a few things in the chat here. If anyone wants to check it out. I have some insight from Marie. And Asha saying Govardhan is a family deity, treated as a part of your family. It's very nice. This is the last point I'd like to make. We mentioned Raghunath Das Goswami, right? He's of the 6 Goswamis, and how he had this particular devotion, connection with Govardhan. And he spent his final days living beside Radha Kund within Govardhan. But he wrote this one composition, Govardhana Vas Prarthana Dashakam. Aspiring, it's a prayer, 10 verses, aspiring for residence in Govardhan. And he's praying to Govardhan Hill for shelter and residence. And the refrain of each verse is Nija Nikata Nivasam Dehi Govardhanatam. Oh, Govardhan, please give me some place close to you. And there's this one verse, it was actually, I had the good fortune to be there with my mother too, Divya Shardidi. She's with us anonymously today by her request. But I just spoiled her anonymity, sorry. We were there, and it was 2008, our Gurudev's last visit to Govardhan and Vrindavan. And they were extraordinary talks, actually. And a number of devotees, senior devotees mentioned that. Bhakti Lalita, she mentioned, I haven't heard Gurudev talk like this in 10 years. And there were other sannyasis too who were really blown away by some of the things that our Gurudev was sharing. But there was this one talk he gave when we were in Vrindavan, and he quoted one verse from this composition of Raghunath, where Raghunath is making this very deep, heart-touching prayer to Govardhan, saying, "Oh, Govardhan, there's no reason why you should accept me, right? I am such a lowly person. There's no reason why you should accept me. However, your most beloved, Shachi Nandan, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he gave me to you, and therefore you must accept me. Therefore you have to accept." And so our Gurudev said, in the same way, who are we to have any connection with Govardhan, Vrindavan, all these high things? But we have connection with our Guru, right? And so by the grace of our Guru, then we can be accepted. Then we have some connection. We have some place here. And so that is also our position, right? That who are we and what do we know and feel and what is our realization? And so we have very, very little, right? But we are very fortunate because we have been accepted within the family of Srila Bhakti Sundar Govinda Dev Goswami Maharaj, Srila Bhakti Rakshak Sridhar Dev Goswami Maharaj. They've accepted us anyhow into their family. And so by that connection, we have some connection. All of these things, they become real, more tangible because of that, right? Govardhan is not just, otherwise it is like a fairy tale, right? A very nice story about the Lord, but with the connection of our gurus, then everything's coming closer to us. Like the telescopic system, our Gurudev liked to use that analogy, telescopic system, so many lenses of gurus, which are bringing that highest reality closer to us, right? Okay, some more messages here in the chat from Ash and Tungarasa. Okay, Tungarasa said there's a special photo of Gurudev. Look that up. And Ash is sharing a story here. Okay, well, anyone want to add any comments or questions before we close today? Thank you all for, you have a question?
What's the name of that deity?
Anu Giriraj. Yeah, that's a good question. I wanted to mention that. The name that our Gurudev chose for the deity that was discovered on our land there, Anu Giriraj, which is kind of humorous. So Anu, it means next to, following, or small. And our Gurudev gave that like out of respect, like deferring to the larger Govardhan hill that is there. But at the same time, the deity is actually quite big. So, I mean, like normally Govardhan Chilas are fairly small. It's probably the biggest one I've ever seen. It's quite big. So, okay, Ash is saying that they'd like to see the photo. Maybe I'll share it with our, oh, wow, that's a pretty amazing photo. Thanks for sharing that, Tungarasa. I'll share it in the WhatsApp group so everyone can see it. All right. Okay. Okay, well, maybe we'll close there for today. Thank you for all of your good association on this special day of celebration. Jai Shri Bhakti Sundar Govinda Dev Goswami Maharaj ki Jai, Shri Bhakti Rakshak Sridhar Dev Goswami Maharaj ki Jai, Śrī Govardhan Pūjā ki Jai, Maha Mahotsava ki Jai, all the assembled devotees, sincere seekers ki Jai, Shri Hari Nam Sankirtan ki Jai, Jai Gaur Premanande, Hari Bol. See you all next time. Thank you for helping with the hosting, Marie. Jai Gurudev.